I have this opinion. If people are giving advice about health, they need to have had or have some type of clinical experience where they're interacting with people as a clinician. Because at least this was my experience, you feel the weight of people's lives and they're like looking at you and they're like, should I or should I not do this? And you are directly seeing the effects of your influence. And that relationship is not parasocial. It is personal. Like the guy on the fluoride episode, whoever that dentist was, that was like, oh, fluoride can kill a kid. Well, he's never going to see the effects of that statement. There are effects though. And that's the thing that I think is missing, that I hope this podcast starts to like shift in people's brains. When you say things and you have people that are listening to you, stuff happens to them one way or the other.
Welcome to Influence to Death, your guide for navigating the wild world of wellness influencing.
It can't stop.
What is that?
It's a virus. Like it's an enterovirus, like the flu and the common cold, but it's a different one. And so kids will get it. And that's like the telltale thing is like the rash on your hands or feet or inside your mouth. But
did you have that?
No, I didn't have the rash. I actually thought I had either the flu or COVID, and Max had it too. But then once he was all better and his fever was gone, he got a rash on his feet, I guess, or his hands. And I was like, oh, you have hand, foot, mouth. I realized it, and the pediatrician confirmed it, but I never got the rash. It just is like a bad flu kind of for adults. Some adults, though, stay sick for like weeks, and then they get the rash, and it doesn't go away for a long time. And so they have to like be in public with like a rash like on their face or whatever. Yeah.
Familiar with that?
Yeah. So,
oh, honey, that's because you got sick like 2 weeks ago or something.
Yeah, it was 2 weeks ago, and I just still have all this like congestion in my lungs that I keep like coughing up. So if I keep clearing my throat, that's what it is. I've been taking this herb that's an expectorant, and I think it's
Lobelia?
helping a lot. It is elecampane. I don't know if I said that right. Yeah. So
I always think about lobelia because it's an expectorant, but it'll also like make you puke. It's like, I think they give it to people whenever they want to stop smoking because it like helps them get all of the crap out of their lungs.
Yeah.
But also like, I don't know if this was just this one kind of like naughty herbalist that I worked with, but he was like, I'll give people like a little too much. And then it makes them like kind of nauseous and pukey. And then they associate that with cigarettes. And it's like this really nice, like mental
aversion.
Association.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Anyway.
I know people who need that.
Yeah. I needed that.
Not me. Other people in my household.
Oh, Does Andy roll his own?
Not anymore. He thinks he's really sneaky.
Yeah.
And like when we met, he smoked cigarettes, and I was like, "That's disgusting. You need to stop doing that."
Yeah.
And so I think he like pretended to quit. This was like almost 15 years ago, and he didn't.
But he still uses tobacco.
He uses tobacco. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Andrew kind of had that with me because I smoked tobacco when we got together, but I rolled my own. And so it like wasn't as gross to him or something.
Yeah.
But like he hates it.
Right.
He has like a really extreme aversion. I was like, oh, I love cigarettes. Now I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, I worked in a bar. I mean, in Tennessee where I live, you could still smoke in bars until you might even still be able to smoke in bars. I don't know, but I worked in a bar, so many years back where it was smoking. And so I worked, and people were
Dude,
smoking.
I bet in Nashville you can smoke in bars, right?
I don't really know that something changed in the last like few years when it was kind of like amazing because they were like, oh, because we were one of the last places where you're still smoking like in a building. Like,
yeah. Kentucky too. I mean, God,
yeah.
same.
I remember going to Cracker Barrel as a kid.
Oh,
that was like a huge thing because we never went out to eat, and I was so excited to go to Cracker Barrel because you had like the little room with all the toys and candy that you could wait in. And so when we were waiting for our food, I'd be like, can we go look at this stuff? And we would just like look. And of course we never got to buy anything, but I was just like amazed at all the things. But they had the lattice between the sections, smoking and not smoking. And somehow it worked pretty well. I don't know.
I totally 1000% remember it was like a thing with holes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was lattice.
And I would like look through to try to see people smoking cigarettes. I'm like, what are they
Girl, I mean,
doing
think
over
about
there?
this. People used to smoke on fucking airplanes.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? I would be sick as a dog.
Yeah, that's disgusting.
Okay, well, Should we? Yeah. I guess we are talking about ourselves. So, welcome to Influence to Death. I can't even remember our tagline.
We are exploring the wild and ideological world of wellness influencing. Is that it?
It's close. It's today. Yes, that's the tagline. So today, even more informal than usual. This is actually what made me think about this episode, Hannah, is we'll get emails where people are like, who are you? Like people will actually ask, or like you talk about all these topics or what you've experienced, but like what have you taken or done to actually help with, your own health stuff. I mean, I'm cool to go into that a little bit, but we just thought today we would kind of tell you our backstory and what got us here. So first, we're going to do a couple updates. So by the time this is published, we will have published our fluoride. Sorry, I'm just sweating. It is so hot in my house. Whew, it's real hot. It must be in Tennessee too, right? Like pretty.
Today is pretty cool, but I think it's about to be upper 90s like this weekend.
I just walked around the block and I got home and I was like, okay, well, my hair's wet. So yeah, our fluoride episode will have been published, but there's one study that I had pulled up that we didn't cover that we just wanted to touch on today. And I've actually posted some social media clips, I think just one social media clip on fluoride. And it's interesting. We got a comment from somebody who just watched the clip that was like, I keep seeing this thing come up. And I'm sure people are like, quit talking about this. And if you feel like that, Hannah, please tell me. I totally will. But the clip was bent toward kind of like talking about how the integrative or holistic view of fluoride being bad is not the full story. So it looked like our bias was like toward keeping fluoride, and that it was positive, which is just one part of this full episode that we filmed. So the comment was like, yeah, basically like they felt the same. And so I replied like, hey, this is a really caveated topic. Like this was just one part of our episode. And he wrote back and he was like, other scientists have covered this on podcasts, and he brought up the Unbiased Science podcast. Have you ever listened to that?
No, I have not.
I have not listened to it enough to have a strong opinion on it. I listened to it a little bit because they did a episode with Sarah Valentine. I always want to mispronounce her name. It rhymes with Valentine, Sarah Valentine. And so before she came on our podcast as a guest, I listened to that episode. But the thing that, and then I wrote back to the guy and I was like, hey, listen, feel very uncomfortable calling myself a scientist, but like I'm science literate, but like, hey, we look at research also in all of our episodes and found research, that was dubious with, we're not really sure that fluoride's positives outweigh the negatives. It was a totally civil, like beautiful conversation. But what I thought about during that is, I think this is what I want to keep coming back to. There is no such thing as unbiased. Anything, which is why we're like trying to give you a balanced view, but mainly we just tell you what our biases are, because I'm like, I don't know what you would have to be to not have a bias, like a realized ascended master or something. It's arguable if those beings even exist. It's like every human has that preset, even if they're really trying. And we really try. I mean, we talk about this a lot. We write about this a lot. We are covering topics and trying to like look at as many perspectives as possible. But there is no such thing as unbiased. So yeah, it just keeps coming up for me more and more. So Hannah just got accepted into grad school. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So I'm going back to get a second graduate degree, which seems like a lateral, not productive mood, but I'm pretty stoked about it. And it is in public health and dietetics. And so right now we both went to the same graduate school, Victoria and I. So we both have master's in human nutrition and functional medicine. And after I did that, my plan was to do my internship, become a certified clinical nutrition specialist, and then work in a clinic or start something in, my town. But then I got pregnant. And so that never happened. Then it was a pandemic. So that, no internships were happening like in person. And so it kind of changed my trajectory. So, but I'm grateful for that, how that turned out, because now in the last 2 years, I've realized that I'm more passionate about public health than private, like, kind of functional medicine type practice, which I still love, but it's just different. They're just very different. And so,
Yeah.
and I've also always wanted to become a registered dietitian because it opens up a whole world of opportunity. You know, you can teach, you can do so many more things. At least we're in the state that I live in. And so I'll be able to sit for, you know, to become a licensed dietitian. And so it's exciting. So that's what I'm going to do in 2 months. I'll start that program. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's okay. I don't think it's a lateral move at all. I think it's huge and to be commended.
Thank
And
you.
it also like inspires me because I would love to get my PhD and we have to like pay for this house. And
I
my
know.
husband and I have owned a home
No.
in Kentucky and not lived in it for 3 years because of his work, which is great. But the degree that the thing I want to study is bias, which is like, I think what I'm trying to say is like, it's on my mind a lot. It's something we talk about a lot. And if there's like one point that I can get across to people in this podcast, the reason that we're like looking at all of these different topics, gluten and carnivore and fluoride and make America healthy again and soy and all these things, it's like they are such kind of contentious, strong topics in people's minds. It's kind of like poking the bear. It's like the perfect context to look at the fact that I believe this is, I mean, I don't even have to believe this. This has been shown, but like we have an evolutionary bent toward choosing a side, but it doesn't do us any favors now. Like,
Right.
I mean, I wonder about that even. It's like back in the day, it definitely kept us alive. It kept us like around people who had the same like bacterial patterns that we did. So we wouldn't, you know, get sick. It kept us from like going away from our tribe and getting eaten. You know, it's like there were mechanisms that it's like bias was helpful. But now it's like, I don't know, we live in such a complex world.
Yeah.
I don't see it as being helpful anymore.
No, I don't think it's helpful anymore. I think it's like fucking everything up.
Me too.
Actually, last night I saw this tweet or X. I don't know. I'm not on that platform, but like, you know how things will be shared on different platforms, like a screenshot or whatever, from Marjorie Taylor Greene. Do you know who that is?
Girl, do I know? I actually don't know what state she
I think she's Georgia.
represents.
For some reason,
Okay.
I thought she was Tennessee, but I'm on the border. Like I'm on
Yeah.
Chattanooga, so we're like right there on that. Georgia's like 10 minutes away. You know,
I thought for a second maybe she was a rep for Kentucky, and I was like, oh God,
it could have. Yeah. Anyways, not typically a fan of her. But what she said, I agreed with every single thing she said in this like post she made. And it was like hard for my brain to comprehend because in my mind, she's like I'm like, ugh, her, like,
Yeah.
you know, I don't agree with this, like this infuriates me, this, and this. So it's easy to just kind of like take anything or assume anything she says I'm going to hate, right? And she made these statements and I was like, I agree with everything you're saying. And it was a very confusing feeling.
Yeah, it's just,
it made me realize how much I am influenced by my bias that I hold or preconceived ideas or assumptions about people. And it was a really interesting, kind of profound moment, if that makes sense. It was just, I was kind of like, wait a minute, could I possibly agree with her on more things? But I have like kind of not even given it the opportunity because there's some moral issues that I like profoundly disagree with. So I have like kind of closed my brain off to even being open to other possibilities. Does that make sense?
so hard.
Yeah.
It feels to me when that happens to me, like I'm coming out of my body. Like I start to like disassociate and I'm like, whoa, this feels really uncomfortable. It feels like vertigo kind of like
it's like your reality a little bit. It feels like,
yes, it's like deeply, deeply uncomfortable. I mean, Hannah, I know I've talked to you about this, but I swear to God, the reason that we have the biases so strong that we have is because how our nervous system is like anatomically created. That's what I want to study is that. But yeah, I've had that feeling. Actually, this is a perfect segue into the episode. It's like so many times in my life, which is like one of the reasons why bias is so interesting to me is because I have such strong biases enough where I've been humbled out over and over and been like, oh, that thing that I thought was like God's true word was absolute, 90% bullshit. So maybe I should be a little more chill and just like try to let some information in. Anyway, I just think it's important that people know that, like, this is where we're coming from. I think it's right based on what I've seen in my almost 43 years on this planet. We'll see. So far, man, it keeps getting revealed to me that politics, health, love, like so many things, we're informed by our bias. And if we can just like push a little bit around the edges, a whole different world opens up to us. It's very interesting.
But nothing. I wasn't going to say anything.
I'm just looking at this paper. I just mentioned that we had this paper that we didn't discuss in the fluoride episode. I think I'm just going to put it in the show notes for this episode as an update. It's a very interesting study. It is from the Archives of Toxicology, May of 2020, and the title is Toxicity of Fluoride, Critical Evaluation of Evidence for Human Developmental Neurotoxicity in Epidemiological Studies, Animal Experiments, and In Vitro Analysis. The reason that it's interesting to me is when I looked at it, the author list it's interesting. I mean, that's the best way to describe it. They are all German scientists, but they gathered different scientists from many, many different areas of expertise. So nutrition and food science, immunology, ergonomics, food safety, experimental pharmacology and toxicology, neurology, psychology and neurosciences, food chemistry. I mean, it's like a long list of people working together to write this paper. What I will say is anybody who has looked for 1 second at epidemiology, which is a type of study, I mean, public health, I would imagine it's one of the most like prevalent forms of research. It's the study of disease and just patterns in large groups of people. There are problems with epidemiology. I mean, we took, very intense research and analysis courses in our program that we went to with a large focus on epidemiology, because in nutrition, it's one of the main ways that we can understand how humans interact with food. It is complex. It's just not easy, and it should be taken with a grain of salt. And so the bulk of the studies that they looked at for this paper they're human studies, but they're epidemiological studies. So I just think, like,
what did they find? What was the conclusion?
Even that is like, so they start out and they're like recently. And so the paper is published in 2020. So, it's about 5 years old. They talk about epidemiological studies suggesting that fluoride can be a neurotoxin and reduce measures of intelligence. So they actually say that, it possibly should be put into the same category as lead, methylmercury, and arsenic, or polychlorinated biphenyls, which are PCBs.
That's a big deal.
Yeah. So, but, when they this is just the abstract. The paper is robust. And I will say, I kind of struggled to get through it. It's like, there's a lot of information in here. So they write, to gain a deeper understanding of this assertion, we review the levels of human exposure as well as results from animal experiments. And their main focus is developmental toxicity. And they look at, and this is why I think it's important, they had these different scientists, they look at the mechanisms, like the molecular toxicity mechanisms that fluoride might cause adverse effects. So in vitro studies looking at nervous system cells and neuronal cells, 23 epidemiological studies that it's from 2012 to 2020 were looked at in this study. So this is their write-up of what they found. The results show that the margin of exposure between no observed adverse effect levels, so nothing is wrong, in animal studies and the current adequate intake of fluoride, which we talked about that in the episode, that it's not a recommended daily intake just because we don't have, it's not essential, and there's not enough information for us to make a real recommendation. So the margin of exposure between no adverse effect and the adequate intake in humans ranges between 50 and 210. I think this is micrograms per kilogram per body weight per day, depending on the specific animal experiment used as reference. So in the experiments, there's a large margin. And it's a pretty large margin between 50 and 210 micrograms per kilogram. Even for unusually high fluoride exposure levels, a margin of error of at least 10 was obtained. I mean, Hannah, I don't know, maybe you want to cut this out. It's like, I'm not even sure what that means.
Yeah.
Even for unusually high, it's like in studies where they're giving the animal a ton of fluoride, there is still some margin of error. So they're not sure if it's toxic or not. I think that that's what that means. Furthermore, concentrations of fluoride in human plasma are much lower than fluoride concentrations. And that concentrations of fluoride in human plasma are much lower than fluoride concentrations, I'm like, in animals, causing a, that's the part I'm like, I don't really know.
What does
I
that
wonder
mean?
if like the German translation,
Yeah.
causing effects in cell cultures. Maybe this is what, there's like, it was hard to read. And I was like, man, I wish that I could like have somebody that spoke German to talk to me about the original paper. Concentrations of fluoride in human plasma are much lower than fluoride concentrations that cause effects in cell cultures.
Okay.
I think that's what that means.
Yeah.
I feel like seriously, like I'm in like algebra 2 and I have to go up to the board in high school. In contrast, 21 of 23 recent epidemiological studies report an association between high fluoride exposure and reduced intelligence. The discrepancy between the experimental and epidemiological evidence may be reconciled with deficiencies inherent in most of these epidemiological studies. So what they're saying is like they didn't really see a lot of problems in cell or animal studies, but they did see problems in epidemiological studies. But they are saying, like we mentioned, epi studies, they're not written stone. And they're saying this is especially with respect to adequate consideration of potential confounding factors such as socioeconomic status, residence, breastfeeding, low birth weight, exposure. Based on the totality of currently available scientific evidence, the present review does not support the presumption that fluoride should be assessed as a human developmental neurotoxin at the current exposure levels in Europe. So I guess that's their end result. But like I was saying, how they got there, it's like, it feels like a lot. It's like a little hard to understand. The cell studies showed something different than the epidemiological studies.
And this is why reading research can be so difficult and really interpreting it.
Yeah. And then it's like, you got to read every one of those studies, really.
Right.
You're either going to trust those people that did that.
Go back and look at the other studies. That's something that I see happen a lot in functional medicine, where it's kind of, there's this confidence or like, whatever the opposite of imposter syndrome is that I have. I feel like I'm not adequate enough, but then I see a lot of clinicians who like definitely do not feel that way. And they have a high level of confidence in their interpretation of data or research or knowledge and grasping like understanding of what's out there, and oftentimes I think misinterpret research studies because of that confidence is kind of like blinding to what you just said, where you actually need to go and look at the other stuff that they're citing, or you need to thoroughly read it instead of just like going to the conclusion, reading what it say, and then like grabbing onto that and then transferring that to a message that you're giving to your clients or your audience, like a strong message without any nuance or being cautious in how you're saying may, or we might think this, or this could be true, instead of like this is the truth. That is problematic, and that's a really big problem I see in functional medicine. So but I get it too, because it is hard and it takes so much time and brain power to wade through and do figure it out like thoroughly, to where and really in the end what I would think mostly happens is you end up with a conclusion that is uncertain, and there's a high degree of uncertainty, and then that's not a good feeling. People they're like, oh, I don't really like that. I'd prefer to be sure, so I'm just going to stick with this because I'm sure about this.
Hannah, I swear it all comes back to being afraid of dying.
Yeah. I mean,
and like feeling of out of controlness of just like living on this planet, period, where like we have to like grasp onto something and feel sure of it. We could get really out there and philosophical, which whatever. Today we can talk about whatever we want. It's about us. But yeah, like, look, that's probably like the 5th time I've read that abstract. I've read it to myself in the morning, in the afternoon. Like my brain is definitely sharper in the morning. Like I have read that a lot, and I still got more out of it that time. The 5th time around. So yeah, it's hard. And have you ever seen that little meme? It's like the guy on his computer and he's like, I'm going to go on Google and find out what the truth is. And then it like shows up his Google results. And the first result is like confirming what I think is true. And he clicks on it and he's like, jackpot. Like, I mean, I think it happens in conventional medicine though, too. Like really, and this is okay. this is the hard thing. Listening to our fluoride episode, we talked about, like, okay, we see this in integrative medicine or in functional medicine, like why people think that field is a joke is because, I mean, there's so many reasons why, but like, yeah, you can't say, for instance, that like fluoride is going to kill a kid at the dentist office.
Yeah.
There's like a carefulness or something that conventional medicine has. But the whole reason that the world of functional medicine exists, one of the main reasons anyway, is because there are these gaps in conventional medicine. And I think one of those gaps is that the like sureness, like what you're talking about, the like, this is the way, this is the only way. If you don't do it this way, you're an absolute maniac. And people are like, hang on a second, that's not the case. But yeah, I see it in both
definitely.
worlds. Anyway, we will put that toxicology paper in the show notes. There's a lot to go through. And mainly I was just impressed because I was like, wow, they got all these different people together to look at this and talk about this from these different angles. And I think there's value in that. So we don't know if fluoride should be in the drinking water. Good luck with that. I'm seriously, I'm like, I have no idea if it should be.
Either. It is. That's what it is. So I guess in this like today, what we're talking about now, we did that update and we just wanted to kind of do like a short bio for each of us, right? So if we were a blog, you would click on the About Me page because we have had a couple people, especially in the early episodes, who are like, you need to like talk about your qualifications because you don't know who you are. You're just, and I think that's just because that's not a really kind of our bent. We're just like, let's get right into it. Yeah. So let's do it. Like, I want to hear about you and like a little bit about your background and how you ended up studying nutrition and doing a podcast.
Yeah, Hannah, like every time I think about your history, I think about the picture of you biking that juice cart around wherever. Were you in Chattanooga living at that time? Yeah. It's just like the coolest. I remember seeing that. I think that because you went through NTA, right, in Portland.
Yeah.
And Amanda Jones, who's been on the podcast, and I were helping teach that class. And we were staying in a hotel room together we called them alternative s'mores. So we would take pork rinds instead of graham crackers. There was that brand that it was pretty new.
Epic? Yes. Before that?
What year was that even? Like 2008?
No, it was way before that. I think I graduated from NTA in 2014.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my God. But it was like these like delicious, like, pasture raised pork, whatever, bougie pork rinds. And so we would take those and then this brown butter chocolate and marshmallows, and we would make these alternative s'mores on the like coffee machine where it heats up, put them in there. Anyway, that's what we were up to when we weren't teaching. But I remember like you were in class, and I feel like somehow in that class, we saw that picture, or we saw it right after we graduated. Maybe we, became friends with you on Facebook. And I remember like talking to her and being like, this chick is so rad. Like, look at this, like she's like biking around this like mobile juice cart. Like, hell yeah.
Put those pictures. I think it would be fun to put pictures of both of us from back then, like in the show notes. Yeah. My husband and I, we had traveled in Southeast Asia. And when we were in different parts of Thailand, we were just really impressed by like the ingenuity and like people's entrepreneurship, I guess. Like people just like, one with the different types of regulations of the US versus there, where you could kind of just like sell food on the side of the road or do whatever. And there's not as much like red tape around everything. One of my favorite things in one of the towns we were in was the state of like their electrical wires, where it would just be like tangles of like wires, up there. And we're both like, wow. And it's fine. Everybody's fine. Like there's, it works. But we had this idea to make a pedal powered juice bar that was entirely human powered. So Andy is brilliant, and he designed this, like we got a masticating juicer, we took it apart and put it on a seated exercise bike where the chain powered the masticating motor auger, I guess. And you pedaled it. And then all of it, we would carry it around town on the back of a bicycle. So he built a little like cart that was pulled by a bicycle on a trailer. And so we would go to the farmers markets and stuff. It was called Off-Grid Juice. And we did it for 2 years. And it was really fun. It was kind of like an experiment. And I think that Chattanooga wasn't really ready for something like that yet. People in a lot of places we would set up they were so unsure and confused about what we were doing
Yeah.
that they would just like stare at us and then just walk away. It was a really interesting social experiment.
You're like, are you thirsty? That's what
Yeah.
we're doing over here.
They're like, what is this? And I explained, they're like, oh, that sounds good. Okay. Just like walk away.
Bye. Yeah.
So it was, I think we could, and at that time there wasn't a juice bar in Chattanooga. And then around the same time we did it, someone opened like a cold pressed juice bar. That was when that was becoming really popular.
Big deal.
You know, and
Yeah.
so it was fun while it lasted. It wasn't really like going anywhere unless we wanted to actually open like a brick and mortar shop, which we kind of thought, oh, we could do that and like set up like everybody can make their own juice. You know, it'd be a whole
Ooh.
like fun thing.
Yeah.
But you know, we never did that. And then we ended up going down different like pathways for, you know, work and school and stuff. So he ended up going back to school to get an engineering degree. And then I went to NTA and, you know, and then from there ended up going to University of Western States for, you know, the human nutrition program. So
How did you get into nutrition? Like, why do you think you were drawn in that direction?
So when I was a kid, it definitely like started then. I was really, really obsessed with food, like, and especially like foods that I didn't have access to. So just like thinking about all these different foods, like reading, and I love to read. And so I would read about like a banquet or a feast. I loved reading about like medieval times and like all the food they would have and stuff, and thinking about like different how you would make it. And we had limited like resources as a kid, and so it was a lot of like tuna fish and, you know, spaghetti and
Pimento
bread
cheese.
and like very, very simple, the most economical like foods. And so that really like piqued my interest in just being curious about like other things and tastes and like what other people were eating around the world. And you know, I learned to cook and I loved that. And so, and then when I was after I graduated with my bachelor's degree in psychology, I worked in a mental health care facility in Portland, Oregon. And I started becoming really interested in food and mental health and how it could influence your mood and cognition and everything like that. I think I had picked up like a book at a yard sale in Oregon from like the 70s, and it was about nutrients and schizophrenia. And because I worked with people with schizophrenia in my job, I just thought it was really fascinating. And it was things I had never heard of before. Like I knew nothing about like, you know, B12 and brain health and like vitamin D and like, you know, things like that, and how the immune system affects your like brain health. And I was just like, wow, is this real?
Yeah.
This is so cool. And then I started noticing these patterns at work, like the foods that people were eating and then how it would correspond with like their mood, or if someone had a psychotic episode and then they came back from the hospital, how that would affect their eating patterns and things like that. And it was just really fascinating to me. And so I started thinking, I wonder if there's like something where you can like use food to help people feel better. And I like started researching nutrition therapy. And prior to that, I was more interested in environmental therapy. That's kind of the direction I was headed in. I wanted to study that for a master's degree and work with like kids in nature therapy.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of like, oh, I love that, but this is really cool. And it was like a hard kind of, you know, choice to shift towards. But I just kept always coming back to food. Like I loved reading about nutrients and studying like polyphenols and all what the vitamins do in the body and all, you know, like the tiny breakdown of food and how the biochemical, I guess, aspect of it.
Yeah.
So because I was always thinking about that, I was like, well, I guess I'll just try this, you know, and voila. So yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. So you were living in Portland when you were in that NTA.
I actually had moved back to Chattanooga. So I'm from Chattanooga, Tennessee. Yeah, I was born in Kentucky, moved here when I was a kid.
No way, you were born in Kentucky?
Yeah, I lived in Hyden, Kentucky in my early years.
Oh my God. Hannah, I didn't know that.
Yep. And then I moved to Chattanooga, and I was raised here mostly. And when I graduated from college, got my bachelor's degree here in Chattanooga, University of Tennessee, Chattanooga. I moved to Oregon to do woofing on a farm.
Oh my God, yes. Willing workers on organic farms. That's what that stands for.
And then, yeah, that's when I worked in the mental health care facility for a few years. And then I met Andy, my now husband. We moved back here for a little bit. We traveled in Southeast Asia for a while. And then that's when then we started a juice bar and I started the nutritional therapy program. Yeah. And once I did that, it was kind of like, I was like, well, this is a good foundation, but I have a lot more questions. Even then, I was like very uncertain about seeing people kind of develop this dogmatic approach to nutrition, especially in that like crunchy side of things. And it was really a big turnoff for me. And I was like, no, like, I think like I need to learn more. Like, this doesn't sit right with me. Like, I don't think that this, person who did a nutrition certification course, like a year-long course, can be treating people like they're almost like acting like they're a doctor. Like that's not a good idea.
Nutritional Therapy Association is NTA, and there's like a whole hands-on component of that program that was taught to people who became NTPs, nutritional therapy practitioners, and it required a stethoscope and a sphygmomanometer, so like a blood pressure cuff. Can you believe I can still say that? I always think of that Muppets character where it's like, oh no, a sphygmomanometer. And so I think people had this feeling, if they were, kind of like turned in that direction a little bit, where it was like the stethoscope. Like I've actually seen photos that some NTPs take, and they're like wearing like a white suit jacket with their stethoscope. And I'm like, that's not the vibe.
No.
That is not what we're doing.
It's misleading. And
it is like, a little misleading. Yeah.
Again, it's that confidence. It's like, oh, I have this confidence, instead of erring on the side of like uncertainty, like, or maybe I should.
What was it, Hannah? Like, why do you think you had that in you?
I don't know. I mean, I want to know why the other people have that in them. Like, why do they have that confidence? Like, what's wrong with them? Like, what's going on there? Like, why are you so sure of yourself?
I feel like I'm going to have a stroke. Yeah, that's totally true. I just see that as like the default. Like, it's so rare that somebody is like, hang on a second.
Yeah.
I didn't know if there was some like thing that happened or...
No, not at all. Like, and I've worked in both types of clinics. I have worked for a conventional physician as like a nutrition coach. I've worked in a functional clinic as the nutrition coach and kind of seen like both sides of it. I think for me, it seemed like instinct, like, being in that community of people who are really excited to teach others about food and like how to use that to optimize your health is awesome. And then seeing like occasionally, maybe more than occasionally, the folks who would be like, asking questions in the group, like, I have a client who's like bleeding out of their ass. Like, what can I give to them?
It's true.
And be like, they need to go to the emergency room. Right. You're not a doctor. Like, what is this? You know what I mean? And it just kind of like made me very apprehensive of feeding into that, and instead be like, okay, I'm going to go back to school and learn more, Yeah. And then do you feel like I know we've talked about in past episodes, you like had trouble keeping weight on as a kid. I mean, it turned out you were celiac. It was like textbook. Yeah, I think that, I've actually never been formally diagnosed because I've been gluten-free for so long, but it was a pretty like incredible turnaround once I went gluten-free. And all of my symptoms like really match up, even the extra gastrointestinal symptoms like match up. But yeah, I had a really hard time gaining weight, like really hard. And it was I was very self-conscious about it because I would get made fun of, and I would like drinks. I remember in high school, I would bring like Slim Fast with my lunch or whatever, like crappy, like Ensure, thing you can get at Walmart, like, and to try to gain weight because it was just so hard for me to gain weight. And then, so I had a lot of health problems. I had like severe migraines and headaches. I had really, persistent acne, and like anxiety. It was a lot, nausea, like I was vomiting a lot, like for no reason, like sick to my stomach all the time, stuff like that. And so it definitely motivated me to like figure out like, what's wrong with me. Yeah. And I didn't even really think it could be, I guess, anything related to food or lifestyle, because no one had ever really said that to me. It wasn't even kind of on my radar. it was just that like something must be making me sick and for some reason other people aren't sick. Like I don't understand what this is.
But it like took you time to be like, maybe this is the food thing.
It took me a while. I had a kind of, I think instinctually I knew, and we talked about this some in the gluten episode. Like I had a feeling because I could definitely like, without even logging it, I could notice that association. Like when I eat bread, like I feel worse, or like this makes me feel worse when I eat these foods, but I had never really like mapped it out. And then when I was in college, I did like an exchange and I went to France for 5 weeks.
Right.
And I ate so much bread and pasta and crepe. I mean, it was my whole diet almost. Super delicious. I lost a lot of weight in a very short span of time, but it still took me even longer than that. And nobody around me was like, hey, no one knew what that was. They weren't like, this is what it is. And then it got worse and worse. Super frustrating, And then my cousin actually was diagnosed with celiac disease. And I'd never really heard of it before. And it kind of happened exactly at the same time as I was like having this realization, like, I'm pretty sure, like I was about to cut it out and just see. And I was like, oh, damn it. Like, I bet that's what it is. And so I just stopped eating it and it was amazing. Like, but still like I had lingering like problems. But now at this point in my life, it's been like 10 years. Great. My health is great. And so I wish I had known so long ago, like, as a kid, and how that would have changed, my life.
Everything. Yeah, I see now, like not long ago, some like an adult, our age posted on Facebook that their little girl got diagnosed with celiac and she's not even like 10 yet. And I was like, my God, that would have been profound. It just wasn't in our consciousness. And it also makes me think that it's like less and less like a crunchy alternative diagnosis. It's like some people have celiac disease and that it is starting to kind of like bleed over more into like the conventional psyche.
Yeah.
It's interesting, it might be one of those kind of like things that like maybe we've overdone it a little bit on the functional side, but like it really needed to happen on the conventional side.
Right.
And so maybe that popular push has positively influenced doctors to be like, maybe it is this thing. It would have been same for me, like a completely different world growing up if I had known.
When did you figure that out?
Not as soon as you did.
Just recently?
It was since we've lived in Boston.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I mean, I like kind of like you, I was like, it probably would be good for me not to eat this, but I had done such hardcore elimination because I had rosacea. I should put a picture in the show notes of what my face used to look like when I would be really flared. And so I was like, I know when I do these eliminations, I take out all grain for 40 days and it doesn't change. So like, I don't think it's gluten. And it wasn't until we were in school and I took Jason Harlack's GI course that we had to go through. And I like started to realize there is this like good clinicians will teach, like you can't just eliminate, you also have to heal. So I think this is a good thing. Like we have had some emails, people being like, well, how did you help yourself? This is a really important part for me. And I would imagine for you too. You can take foods out, but if you do have a reason that those foods have been like whacking up your immune system or your GI is damaged, or there's all kinds of ways, that things can go sideways. You have to heal what happened. And just taking that exposure out might not be enough. And so I think when I took his course, there were enough tools that he pushed us in the direction of learning about that it healed my body. And I remember there had been a time, and I know I've told this story on the podcast before, I don't need to go into this, but I had taken antibiotics to kill off blastocystis hominis and my face completely cleared up. It like hurts. I think it's like, yes, I'm vain for sure. Like I don't want my face to
But nobody does. Like,
no, totally.
The same motivator. Like I had acne and that was a huge motivator for me more than anything else because I was so embarrassed of like how my skin looked. Yeah.
It's embarrassing. I'm actually just like smiling to myself because I like will still get laser treatments done because I get broken blood vessels really easily. And I flew to Kentucky last week and I had gotten a laser treatment done and I totally looked like one of those women who's like like totally like
Like the
plastic
full.
surgery. Yeah, like because I was really swollen. It sometimes will cause edema in these tissues that are really sensitive. And I was so embarrassed. I was like, oh my God. And then I was like, what irony that like you got this done to like feel better about your skin and like
Yeah.
take off these blood vessels. And I look like I've had, like years of plastic surgery. But anyway, yeah, in his course, he taught us like, here's what actually heals the GI. And I remember thinking to myself, like, wow, this is so different from what is popular. Like, it was
Mhm.
one of many, like, little, like, pins in my mind of, like, ooh, okay, like, there's a lot of, like, difference between what I'm learning here and what I'm seeing that is trending. And so I incorporated a lot of what I learned in his class, and it was the same effect as when my face cleared up from taking the antibiotics, except it wasn't that I had just knocked down an inappropriately placed bacterial population, which is what
Mhm.
happened with the antibiotics. I had actually taken compounds that had pushed the bacteria down for sure. Like he teaches herbal remedies
Mhm.
for that, but also had started to heal my immune and gut. And it was like night and day.
Yeah.
So I really credit him. I mean, it's one of the reasons that I love Jason Harlack so much.
Yeah. His stuff's fantastic.
Yeah, he's an incredible him and Don Whitten has been on the podcast, his business and partner. I
Mhm.
think that that's okay to say that. And they've run Probiotic Advisor for years, which is a fabulous place to learn more about probiotics, but they also have the Microbiome Restoration Center if people want to learn more about what they do. But yeah, that was kind of like the moment where I was like, oh, like there are solutions for this.
Yeah.
So, and to take out gluten paired with that, it wasn't
Right.
just elimination anymore. It
Wow.
changed
So
my
yeah, that
life.
wasn't so long ago.
No, I mean, we moved
What,
to
like,
Boston in 2018. We lived there for
okay.
7 years. And when we moved there, East Coast has got bagels, y'all.
Yeah, I know.
Like delicious fresh bagels. And so when we moved to Boston, there was this incredible bagel company that would use like freshly ground grain and like the
Mhm.
crunchiest, most best prepared whatever. And I was like, I have to eat these bagels. And then it was probably like pretty soon after moving there though. I was like, I just
Yeah,
cannot do
can't do
this.
it. It's
Yeah.
sad. It is hard to give up all that stuff that you love. Like I loved bread, toast, bagels, croissants, beer,
Oh,
you know,
beer.
all
Yeah.
the stuff. But there's lots of good stuff now. I love to bake gluten-free goods. It's like
Yeah.
my favorite thing.
Look,
Yeah.
I have banana bread sitting in there on the counter. Like I'm fine.
Yeah.
But it's funny, Hannah, like we have a very similar story.
Hmm.
First of all, okay, I didn't know you were born in Kentucky. For some reason, that makes me just love you even more. I have deep, deep Kentucky love in me. But like, I was also born here in the town
Hmm.
where Andrew and I are moving back to and actually opening his gym. That's going to happen this summer. Wish us luck. Big old brick and mortar. But I was overweight as a kid. And
Okay. So
I
awful.
definitely am like very sensitive person. I might come off kind of like crass or loud, but I have like a very soft center and it was horrible for me. I like
Yeah.
still like I don't know how it seems like a lot of people they're like friends with people from high school, but I just don't have that because I felt so hard done by, which looking back I'm like everybody feels that way in
Hmm.
school. This was not a unique experience, but like it was really difficult for me. And so I always wanted to just be like regular size, which
Yeah.
now I'm like a huge fan in one way of like the Kardashians and like people who like made bigger bodies okay.
Right.
Because I still live in a body that is it's like bigger than a lot of women's bodies. And definitely like in Kentucky in the 80s and 90s, that was not flying. It was
Right.
like Kate Moss, heroin
Right.
chic. It's so, but just like hearing your story, it's like, it's any deviation from, the norm and anything
Hmm.
probably. Kids are dicks.
Yeah.
So
They sure
like, you're going to get made fun of. But yeah, like then getting through college, I went to school at Murray State for 2 years. I was an opera singer, but I was interested in nutrition because I like didn't feel good. So I was
are.
bigger, but I also just like, I've always had anxiety disorder, like can't sleep some nights. I don't know, it's just the way my
Hmm.
brain tends. I just couldn't hold down anything. So I can sing my ass off, but like
That's
there's
so
no
cool.
way I could have been an opera singer. I could have been in anything, but I was like wanting to go explore the world. And
Mhm.
so I moved to Eugene, Oregon, but I quit school to do that. I went to Eugene for a year on like an exchange program. And then
Mhm.
I remember I'm like in Eugene, Oregon, like living in this completely just wild vegan co-op. I've like become this like hardcore vegan. I had an amazing experience really living in Eugene, like learning more about activism and how, different people live in the world. I don't have to go into all of the details, but I remember calling my mom and being like, hey, I'm not coming back to Kentucky to go back to school, which was like supposed to be the plan. Like, you finish your degree. It was a
Yeah.
huge deal for my parents. Like, I was first generation student in college.
Me too. Another thing in
We had
common.
some,
Weird.
yeah.
Very weird.
And same with our husbands have these like, my
Yeah.
husband's name is also Andrew. Yeah. So I remember I called her and told her I'm not going to come back. I'm going to move to Hawaii. I didn't say I'm going to move to Hawaii and like hitchhike, but I was like, I'm going to move to Hawaii. And I remember she was like, over my dead body. Like,
Mhm.
absolutely not. Which I was like, I'm in Eugene. What are you going to do? You're 3,000 miles away. And so I remember I try to keep it on track. I quit school, moved to Hawaii with a backpack and hitchhiked around Big Island and just happened upon this community of people through this like random connection in Eugene. And I lived there for 4 years. And that's when I was eating the primal diet. You actually sent me the other day on Instagram this guy who is still eating the primal diet, which
Yeah. It's really gross. I thought it was a joke. It's not a joke. We should link it in the show notes. It made me like want to puke. The way he was talking about
he was
eating
pretty
meat
gross. He was
gone
kind of
bad
gross.
and like how to make it taste better. You just mix honey in it if it's rotten and then you eat it. Sure.
There's some very like questionable practices. I mean, it's actually interesting. We just got this cat. Andrew and I are moving here soon. My parents found this little like total beat up little kitten, fostering it. It's the sweetest cat. And so I joined this, it's a holistic pet care membership.
Mhm.
It's awesome. It's called Gracie and Friends. It's Wilma Shaw's pet care membership. And so in the membership, she's like, hey, it's really great if you can to feed your cats a raw food diet. It's like
Mhm.
especially good for them. And I was like, oh, no problem. I still eat my meat raw. Like, not,
You did?
yeah, totally. It's just like totally a part of my life now. I'm not,
Wait, how do you eat it? What do you do?
yeah. So I'm not like, this is the thing. Primal can get really gross. And people would like make high meat, which is it's letting meat sit and the bacterial populations grow. The whole thing is it's a lot. We should do an episode on the primal diet and have
Yeah,
Jameson back to
that's
talk about it.
disgusting.
But it's a completely raw version of eating omnivorous diet, but it's all raw. And we were in Hawaii eating that and Pacific Rim, right? So Hawaii is like, in the middle of all of these different countries. We would have guests from Japan and Micronesia and Thailand and, all these different, the Philippines, all these different places. They would come and stay at this community that I lived at. And I remember so many people would ask us like in the United States, like, why is it that sushi is so popular, but like you all don't eat other raw meat? Like,
Mhm.
why? Like, it was super common, but you all do. Like, it's so rare, And so we would have these guests, and it was like to them, the raw meat thing was just like not a deal. They were like, we also need rice with
Mhm.
this maniacs. Like, you should also be cooking rice, which we weren't cooking much of anything, but like for them, it was just like part of their culture. They would eat raw
Right.
beef in
Well, I guess it
Thailand.
depends on like how you're so I raw beef, I'm like pretty familiar with having different recipes for that in different parts of the world, but
Yeah.
usually you're mixing it with like herbs and spices
Yeah.
and having it with rice or bread or something. So like my idea of the primal thing is the dude on Instagram who's like letting his meat sit in a mason jar and
It's
then
not all,
eating it. Is that
yeah.
what that's not what you do though, right?
But like, I will just eat like some raw steak
Okay. Okay.
and I love the way it tastes. But like, I didn't, like, so after actually I lived in Hawaii, I moved to California for years and engaged in various agricultural activities. The woman that I lived on a piece of land with, she was Lebanese and she would make kibbeh, which
Yeah.
is this,
That's what
it's this delicious raw meat dish with like all these different spices. I
Mhm.
mean, girl, it's like We had friends in Thailand and she would make maggot chicken.
What is that?
It's chicken that you leave out and the flies lay eggs in it and they're maggots. And before you prepare it, you just like scrape the maggots off and then you prepare it raw and you eat it. And it was just like totally normal for them. I don't know
What
if
does it
that's
taste
normal.
like?
I never ate maggots. Like
Okay.
I can't.
Yeah, maggots
can-
freak me out.
I
I can
did
eat
eat.
other insects. I've eaten ants, like mealworms, all the stuff like that.
Yeah.
But maggots freak me out a little.
Yeah, I get it's probably the thing that like does that thing,
Yeah.
like gives me that feeling the most. But we did eat raw chicken for sure. Like, and I'll tell you what, I only felt better and better eating that way.
So that's so fascinating. And I want to do that episode and also talk about like the history of like food safety regulations in the US, because we
Yes.
definitely have a very different view on safety of foods when they're not refrigerated at the proper temperatures. And then anywhere you travel in the world, I feel like, or all the places I've been, it's completely different. Even in parts of Asia, you have the open air markets and like this salted fish or whatever sitting out there all day in the sun. In parts of Spain I went to where they have like their pinchos, like the
Yes.
kind of like little
Like a
bite.
bite. Yeah.
And they sit out there for a long time and people just go and get them whenever. But here it's like it's almost like I don't know. The passion people have about food safety is really intense.
Listen, so the founder of the Primal Diet was on Ripley's Believe It or Not. And they like called in this like, FDA expert. And he was like, if this guy eats this, like he's going to die. There's no way. But like Augenis had been eating food like that for decades. Listen, I never saw Augenis's blood work. He seemed healthy as shit though. But there is this thing though where it's like, okay, so I felt better. I probably was gluten sensitive though. So like there's no gluten on the Primal Diet. There are tons of nutrients. And then maybe the thing that wasn't helpful for me, plus I was living in Hawaii outside and sun and ocean and
so many things.
Run around naked. And, so it's like, yeah, but that experience led me into more like vegan, like this whole, it kind of just like led into, we are different in this way. I was like a total fascist where I was like, you have to do things this way. And actually went through NTA because it like had the same principles that I was interested in. Like I wanted to find a school that taught that type of nutrition and like didn't question very much, just like felt more and more right. I don't think that started to change until I started to practice. Like I opened a practice in California where I moved. And then it's like, it's not just you anymore. It's like you're responsible for other people. And there were some experiences that I had in practice. It made me feel that I have this opinion. If people are giving advice about health, they need to have had or have, I would say even currently it's a good idea, some type of clinical experience where they're interacting with people as a clinician, because at least this was my experience. You feel the weight of people's lives and they're like looking at you and they're like, should I or should I not do this? And you are directly seeing the effects of your influence. And that relationship is not parasocial. It is personal. Yeah. So on the internet, whatever, like the guy on the fluoride episode, whoever that dentist was, that was like, oh, fluoride can kill a kid. Well, he's never going to see the effects, or rarely he's going to see the effects of that statement. There are effects though. And that's the thing that I think is missing, that I hope this podcast starts to like shift in people's brains. When you say things and you have people that are listening to you, stuff happens to them one way or the other. So in practice, I saw that and I was like, oh, I don't know shit, actually. Like, and then I had my own health stuff. I wasn't 20 years old anymore, and that started to come up. So, then I sought out the University of Western States and went through that program. And then also in there, like trying to figure out my own health stuff and spending thousands and thousands of dollars on functional clinicians and supplements and testing and all the shit, and it not making one lick of difference. It's like, then you start to be like, okay, hang on a second. I'm glad this is effective for some people, but it was not effective for me. So it's like, there's something else going on.
Right.
I'm the one who had to figure that out. And I'll tell you, like, I joke that this is my, like, I mean, God, at this point, it's like my $70,000 face. I have a graduate degree and have done more research on rosacea in, all of the like fingers, the
Mm-hmm.
immune system, the GI, because I wanted an answer and nobody else had an answer. But yeah, it starts to kind of make you question, or for me at least, to like go through those experiences led me to now where I'm like, okay, I've had enough input to know to really question, especially myself,
Right.
and it isn't easy. I mean, to come back to what we were talking about initially, it's not easy in myself. And it also does not make you any friends. It actually like makes you some enemies, so like part of Hannah and I's relationship is we work in a marketing agency. And it's like the goal is to present balanced information. I can imagine there are people that don't care to work with us because of that dedication to accurate
Right.
representation.
Yeah.
But that's what we do. So, yeah, people don't like to be questioned
No.
at all, even if they say they do. Like, we've had clients who are like, yes, I am totally committed to this also. And then, like, the most gentle questioning is met with sometimes a lot of resistance. And yeah, it's just baked into us over
Mm-hmm.
hundreds of thousands of years. So yeah, I can't say that. I mean, I had like a very specific diagnosis. You had a very specific, like set of factors with you. It's like, it's hard to say, like, here's exactly what helped. I think what actually helped me the most at the end of the day was if somebody told me, like, this is exactly how it is, or like this protocol, it's like they've experienced and it doesn't work, to keep going, like find the thing that's right for you, and to pay attention if the clinician or the program is like 100% guaranteed. I mean, that's a huge
Right.
claim, but don't do that. I mean, you're throwing a dart in the dark. Like, maybe it will work, and I hope it does, but more than likely, it's like you need somebody who's going to be like, let's explore and question and figure out like all sides of something
Mm-hmm.
versus just like, this is the thing. There is no thing. There
Right.
is no thing.
Right.
So yeah, that's kind of my background. And yeah, now I'm like, man, once we get this business settled and some house payments, more on the books, like some equity in this building, I would love to go study like really kind of the anatomical or physiological basis of bias. I think it's just very interesting to
It
me.
is. It is. It's fascinating.
It will make me zero more money.
Yeah.
I should go get my like nursing degree and become an NP. We just had it. Our friend just graduated with her nurse practitioner's degree and is going to start practicing. And
Oh, that's
it's
awesome.
same
That's
as
actually
it's
what I was going to do originally. That's why how I was able to, I had all my prereqs for, the human nutrition program because I'd already taken A&P and biochemistry because I was going to go to nursing school,
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, seriously. I'd like seen quite a few people of our ilk go in the direction of nursing and really love it, actually.
I still kind of wish I had done that, but.
Okay, well, that's about us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you have any more questions and want to get to know us more, please let us know. We'll answer them in an introduction, and check out the pictures that we have of our past lives below.
I had a lot more hair back then.
You did.
Keep it real chill now. Okay, Hannah, this was super fun. I hope people like this and kind of can see like where we're coming from.
Yeah. All right. I'll talk to you soon.